Hi there, this is Karen Campbell, artist. This is my drawing channel here on YouTube, and I'm super excited to welcome you to week 2 of the Whimsical Women of the World series. This is a 12-part series where I am drawing women from all over the world, different countries, nationalities, ethnicities, and I'm super excited for this is week 2. Last week we did a Native American, and this week we are doing an Indian from India. So the process is the same. This drawing process I'm going to be keeping in real time. So you can pick up a pencil and follow with me. I'm working on a piece of cardstock that has a little bit of a slippery surface. I will link to the materials below in the description box. And I also invite you to submit your final drawings for publication in my book. I would like to feature your drawings in my next book. So there's details on my website as well as in the description box. But you can go to Karen Campbell Artist once you're finished drawing with me and just click on Get Published and you can read about the submission requirements there. So I'm starting with an oval, and this was a little bit tricky because her head is so large it actually goes off of my 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So especially when it came to drawing the eye line or finding out what the eye line is, I actually had to look above the limits of the actual piece of paper to find out where the midpoint was of the drawing. But I'm just doing the best that I can. I started with that oval, and I actually can barely even see her hair because the background is black as well. But I'm just simply doing the best that I can. And it's really important to kind of visualize where the top of her head is, because that is the midline, and that's the eye line. So it appears like her eyes are sitting too high on her head, but that's only because the top of her head is chopped off. So I'm using my finger up at the top there to visualize where the top of her head is, just to make sure that that midpoint is really in the right place, because the eye line is always smack across the center. So then you divide that space, the eye line and the chin, in half, and that's where the nose line is, and then dividing that again for the mouth line. Again, it's like really important to try to find where that midline is. So I'm making a little bit of a correction, and I actually wind up making the eyes right between those two lines. And again, that's why you use a reference photo too. And I'm not going for hyper-realism at all. This is literally and very intentionally called Whimsical Women of the World. I find that drawing super realistic faces is very stressful, and it takes away all my fun. So I am keeping these really whimsical, so that way it's automatically, when you say whimsical, you're giving yourself a ton of grace if things don't come out exactly right. The beauty of it is you can say, oh, it's okay. It's a whimsical face. And it's like a legitimate thing. So do not beat yourself up if it doesn't look like mine, if it doesn't look like the photo. Like, that's not the point. The point is that we are learning to draw whimsical faces, which are faces that look like real faces. They don't look like monsters. They don't look stupid. They are well proportioned. And it doesn't matter if it looks like the photograph. And actually, it's better and it's more creative if you put your own spin on things. And if you doesn't look like mine in the end. And that's actually why I'm opening up this opportunity to show your artwork, because I want to see how other people are coloring in, and I want to see what materials are inspiring you, and I want to see how yours is different than mine. So that's part of the fun. Back to the drawing. As you can see, I'm putting 3 eyes across the middle, and that's what guarantees your proportion when you're drawing any kind of face, either realistic or whimsical. Whimsical faces, I tend to make my eyes a little bit bigger. If this was super realistic, this would actually be 5 eyes across, and they're much, much smaller. So again, that's like an executive artistic decision that I'm making, and I welcome you to make those kind of choices as well. It really is fun and exciting, and kind of go your own way. So you can just think of as whimsical as being like slightly less than realistic, but you know, the end result is super duper fun. So as you can see here, I started off with like a really loose oval for the mouth, and then I'm sort of defining it. So there's this beautiful dip in the top lip, And then her mouth is slightly open, showing her teeth. So I'm just getting ready to kind of define what that open space looks like. And this, again, this is totally real time. So I hope that you can actually draw along with me. I think that, remember, you can always pause if I'm going too fast, but I'm keeping this part in real time. I'm going to be time-lapsing the coloring part because that's where I want you to go and be creative. I want to show you how I'm doing things, but honestly, like, everyone is kind of in love with their own art supplies. I would never tell you what you had or, had to do. So this gives you complete freedom to be able to go and do that, which is so super duper fun. All right, so I'm defining the side of her face. I am looking to this reference because she's so beautiful and she has this these cheekbones and this kind of subtle contouring. So I am looking to my reference. And again, you can use your references as a little or as much as you want to. It's totally your choice. If you want to blow this part off and just make like a sweeping neck, do it. It's all good. So I'm trying to make that a little bit more contoured because I think it's just beautiful. And I'm trying to kind of recreate that look on my own paper. So then she also has some earrings on that are quite large and they cover up actually like her whole earlobe and half of her ear. So that's cool. We're just going to rough that in. And you can make the earrings like something completely different and make up a whole new design. You can go to a different reference and steal, that jewelry design if you like it better. So really the sky's the limit. This is just one way of many that you can choose to use a reference. So I hope this whole 12-part series just gives you just a new outlook on kind of how you can use references, why references are fun and useful, and also when you can turn away from your reference and kind of get your originality on. It's kind of all there for the taking. So you can just pick and choose what you want to do. So I noticed her hairline was way too high. So I was just taking a moment. If you notice, I'm really working around her face. I started with her mouth and then I went south to her chin. And then I literally am working from the bottom up the right side. And now I'm at the top, kind of messing around with those proportions. That I'm erasing the original head oval that I had. And then I'm working my way from the top left and then taking a pause. And it's sort of like the right hand side is finished now. And now I need to figure out how to make the left hand side match up to the right hand side. And there's no order either on how you do this. Sometimes I dive right into the eyes. There's no right or wrong place to start and finish a face. You can work on any part that you like. I do have to say this one I kind of went bottom up, and which I normally don't do, but sometimes that's because I was unsure of her eye position. The going bottom up helped me feel more confident that I was ending up putting the eyes in the right place. So I'm drawing this triangle shape for the area between the top lip and the nose. And this is actually her nose ring that I'm kind of just penciling in at the bottom. And we're going to actually go ahead and draw the nostrils first. The middle portion of her nose dips down really far, and that's why that beautiful nose ring looks so stunning on her. It's perfectly placed in that dip between her nostrils. So I'm just taking a minute because they're so well defined to actually just go ahead and put those in. Normally I start drawing the nose by drawing a ball for the ball of the nose and then drawing the nostrils. But sometimes, like this case, I'm just building it from, again, the mouth up. So between the mouth, the next stop is the nose. So that's what we're going to do. I also noticed that on the reference photo, the shading for the nose is literally exactly down the center bridge of the nose. Oftentimes in photographs and in drawings, the entire bridge, top part of the bridge is highlighted. And the reason I picked this reference photo as a reference for this project is because I loved the dramatic shading that appeared on her, being that you don't get that highlight at all on the nose bridge, which it's really hard to find this lighting pattern. And it really is half and half. So love, and I wanted to give give it a try today, and hopefully you will give it a try too. Her eyebrows are beautiful and thick, and so I'm putting them in as a shape rather than drawing any individual hairs at this point. I am using the ovals that I had set out in the beginning to determine where the eye placements goes. It's always a great way to get things in the right place. And as you can see, the edge of the tear duct, it really does match up with approximately where the edge of the oval is. So you can go ahead and redefine the eye shapes. And I'm just looking again to my reference photo to help me figure out, like, how much does that slope? Is it a really steep slope? Not in this case. In this case, the eyes are really slightly sloped, and the iris, which is what I'm drawing right now, is sitting directly on the bottom of the lower lid. I normally don't use a template for the irises, but it was literally sitting in front of me, so I just grabbed it. And it's always a good idea to do, so if you have one, cool. If not, that's okay. You can always trace other things as well. I usually just eyeball my eyeballs, but in this case, like I said, it was just sitting there, so I grabbed it. She has these gorgeous eyelids, this is my favorite way to draw eyelids on my Whimsicals girls when I'm not using a reference. So I felt like drawing like an old friend, finally actually using a photographic reference that has the eyelids like I like to draw them whimsically is so fun. And it's like, yes, this is actually a real person who has these dramatic, huge eyelids like I always like to draw them. If you've taken any of I have a lot of like draw a 5-minute whimsical face on both my YouTube channels. And this big dramatic eyelid is like one of my favorite, very classic Karen Campbell whimsical face style. But this is really her face. So it was like kind of extra exciting for me that I got to actually emulate a real face where that is really a feature that really is seen. So yeah, just a little personal extra bonus thing going on there for me personally as I draw this. So again, those and this is why I'm loving the series, because it gets you out of your comfort zone. I tend to try and kind of draw the same like whimsical white girls all the time. And I don't draw my eyebrows like this, like that are big block shapes. And I don't tend to draw noses where the middle is drooping down like this. So it forces you to notice all these little details and all of these human faces that, we're all human, but across the world, you have these feature differences that are just all insanely beautiful and really different in some ways and really so much the same in other ways. I just find it so fascinating. I was an anthropology major, and so like learning about other cultures, like deep diving into other societies in different parts of the world and seeing how they dress and their jewelries and accessories and colors and skin colors has always fascinated me. And being able to actually draw these, and it's like just, again, taking a deep dive into the features, just noticing like, oh, is the base of the skin tone yellow or is it red? And noticing like, from the differences between one human and another is just so cool. Excuse my big head, but sometimes, especially when I'm drawing eyes, it's really important to get up and over your work. So I will move my head in a minute, but sometimes I just have no choice but in order to see that. And what I was judging was to make sure that the circle I was using for the right was the same circle size I was using for the left. And I wound out that I hadn't been using the same size. So it's really important. So excuse my head on occasion. That does happen. And I try my best to keep my big hair out of your viewing area at all times. So definitely go ahead. If you noticed, I picked up my paper. It's really important to, when you're drawing faces, to pick up your paper and look at your pages like full on. Because what happens was, I noticed this from making so many videos, is that my view, especially because I have to keep my head at a weird angle so that it's not in the camera's view, is that my eyes a lot of times are wonky. They're not even, one's up or down, because I can't get that straight on view that tells me like, okay, these are straight. So sometimes you'll see me do that where I stick my head in there on purpose because I have to do a check. Because there's nothing worse, trust me, than finishing an entire drawing all the way to fruition and being like, oh my God, my eyes are totally lopsided. So I have to do those little checks. So please bear with me while I do that. So again, cool way to do the eyebrows, which is these big blocks, but that's what they are. And actually in Western society today, this giant eyebrows is super in right now. That's like super all the rage, and actually way bigger than this girl's right here. So I just had to draw your attention to that. Been watching The Bachelor this season or last season, and their eyebrows 2020, beginning of 2020, ginormous, like Brooke Shields on crack from 1988. So this beautiful Indian woman, she's actually probably would be at the narrow end of what's like considered cool in American society right now, which is so funny to me. So funny, especially when you think back to like how skinny the eyebrows were back in the 20s and 30s. All right, so now we have what? Our eyes, ears, nose, and mouth pretty much in the places that we need them to be, so we can finally erase our guidelines. Now, I do have to say a couple of things. Number one, this is my favorite eraser. It's called the Vanish Eraser, and it's amazing. It is like so like eons better than any other eraser that I've ever worked with. So just sharing that little tidbit with you in case you struggle with finding an eraser that really cleans your paper. It's awesome. Number two, where I wanted to highlight right now, is that I like to draw my necks on my whimsical faces much more narrow than an actual person's neck. This is another reason like that I prefer drawing whimsical faces, is because an actual real person's neck is quite wide. She actually has, this actual photograph model actually has a pretty narrow neck. But they really actually come right out of like if you're looking head on, they usually come right out of your jaw. And there is just like a tiny indent. They're quite unattractive if you're looking at it from like a whimsical detail. So I always make the necks on my girls super thin. And that's just like a stylistic choice, which you're welcome to emulate. That's why I have lessons. So you can follow the things that you like. And of course, you can reject anything that you don't. So again, it's a little bit hard to see like what these earrings are. So I'm just drawing some like bulges, but you can always go on a Pinterest and grab some different looking, accessories or whatnot, or hairstyles. I actually popped down and looked at Indian women hairstyles, and I was blown away. And also like the jewelry decoration that you can actually do is, really, really pretty insanely awesome options that you had, but I didn't want to overwhelm anybody. And I just really started, so I didn't want to introduce anything else. So I'm really taking a minute and making her face, trying to make it symmetrical. I really love her cheek structure, her bone structure. So I was trying to incorporate a little bit of that into the drawing and just looking at the curves in the side of her face and just trying to see if I could capture some of that. It's really hard because it's super subtle. And then again, it makes it also difficult because her hair is black and the background is black. So things kind of like just fade into nothing. So you don't have to, kill yourself, but do the best you can. All right. So we are just 2 seconds away from moving on with her face shape and then going and adding her hair. So I'm just kind of calling it a day. And once I have the proportions that I think I'm liking, I'm just adding these soft little, like as if her hair is up on either side. And it's so simple, just these 2 little bump outs on either side, but it's so pretty. I've actually never drawn hair like this before, and I'm definitely going to be using it again. It's really just like subtle, like you can imagine what her hair would look like, from the back. And so, yeah, I really liked it. So again, I do think it's super important that the dot in the center of our forehead is perfect, because that is something that is applied to the skin as like a sticker, and it has depth to it. So I was very cognizant to the fact that we would be adding shading and highlight to make it look like that, make it look like it was applied on top of the skin. And so using that template was actually super, super important. Again, I'm just roughing in. Remember I said that the shadow line is literally like smack centered on the bridge of the nose. So I'm just sketching that line, and it does not stay there, but I just wanted to make sure I understood where the center for the red dot would go, and also where the shading would go, just to make sure I'm not, doing 80 renditions or it was too small or too large. And I would love to know the actual name of the circle. If anybody knows the actual name to that, you can drop that in the comments. I would love to know what the actual name is. I don't sound like a big dum-dum that I really am. All right, so just again, fine tuning. I think the hardest part in this whole drawing wasn't her facial features. It was just her hairline, again, because the top of her head was obscured by the photograph, and I had a really hard time kind of figuring out exactly where the hairline was and what shape it was. Because I know it's a really subtle thing, but these little tweaks can kind of make a difference, just in the overall appearance, making it look right. And I just want to do a good job, right? The end designs are going to be featured in the book. I want to be a good art teacher for those that are drawing along with me. So these details, do matter to me. All right, so, and in case you're wondering what kind of funny eraser this is a Blackwing pencil. It's actually a writing pencil, but it writes so smoothly. And there's a great shot of that nose, and you can see how beautiful it is and how it drops down in the center. And that Blackwing pencil has this really awesome eraser, and you can actually buy refills for the eraser, but I like it because it's a nice narrow rectangle, so it does a really good job erasing fine details, and you can get into little tight areas like that. I also recommend using the mono eraser by Tombow is really good for that as well. But I find if I'm using these Blackwings, I don't need my mono eraser because I already have my little awesome eraser tool. So again, I'm using this template quite a bit for this drawing, and her pupils are actually, they're pretty dilated in this picture, which is funny because this is another thing I tend to draw in my faces. I tend to always draw very small pupils so that there's a lot of room for like drama and the color. And again, this is why these series and these exercises are so incredibly useful, because at least for me, it breaks me out of my habits, right? It's like, okay, well, this girl has big pupils, so you got to draw them. Oh, look, teeth. I never draw teeth. I hate drawing teeth. And so this forces me out of my comfort zone, and it makes me draw things like I see them. And again, I totally don't beat myself up if it's not exact, but I do like to challenge myself, like, all right, got to pop some teeth in there. Like, how do we make this look not super stupid? It's a challenge. It's hard. So I like that it makes me kind of practice things I normally avoid just because I'm lazy and I don't want to do all the hard things. So again, little tiny tweaks like big pupils, a little indication of teeth, just the nose shape differences. This is what makes us become better artists, because we are trying new things. We're forcing our eyes to notice little differences. And honestly, 50% of being a good artist is just having amazing observational skills. So it really is such a useful exercise. Not to mention the creativity that you get to exercise when you get to the coloring portion. Now, when we get to the coloring portion of this, which is coming up in just a second, you notice I'm going to time lapse it because I don't want to get anybody stressed out with one of my favorite ways of coloring, since really coloring is the sky's the limit. Excuse me. And also notice the directionality of the eyelashes here. Also not typically what I would do, but I'm basing them off of her. So I'm just following what I see here. Normally, if I hit to the middle of the pupil, I switch directions, which I do here. As you can see, I'm having them swing off to the right, and then when I hit the pupil, we switch directions and go in the other direction. But I'm not doing that on the right eye because that's not what happens on her right eye. So again, breaks these habits, lets us know that it's okay if things aren't completely symmetrical, and then we're about ready to get our coloring on. So I'm going to demo this in speed lapse because I want you to understand that you do not have to have all these markers. You do not have to use markers in any way. You can use watercolors, you can use acrylics, you can do this whole project in graphite if you want to. So the things that I want you to pay attention to are a couple of things that you can take away no matter what coloring media you're using. Number one is to swatch your colors. So no matter what you're using, you could be doing just colored pencils. Swatch them out ahead of time so there's no surprises and you're not hunting around for the perfect color. So I like to pick out like 3 to 5 colors that all kind of segue seamlessly with each other, right? It's like if you were doing a value scale in gray and you have everything from black to white, you know where your grays would go, right? They line up in order, so they fade from black to white. It's the same thing when you're swatching out your colors. You want to pick colors that kind of go in a row, right? You have dark, medium, and light of the same shade, hopefully. So I was really trying to look at her actual skin color in real life, quote unquote real life, and see what tone is that? Is it a red tone? Is it a peach tone? Is it an orange tone? Is it a yellow tone? And then once I had that one, then I would try to find the other markers that kind of married well based on that. But I'm looking at my computer printed out paper. So that's where photographs can really give you a lot of information that it's awesome to use to help you with your drawing decisions. So as you can see here, I am on my 3rd tone. So I usually, if I'm doing a dark skinned person, I start with the darkest colors first. And then I build them up really slowly, one value at a time. And I'm looking at my reference and saying to myself, where is it the darkest? That's where my darkest marker goes. Where is it the second darkest? That's where my second darkest marker goes. Okay, do you get it? Where is the 3rd darkest area? So that's where my 3rd darkest marker goes. That's literally how I do it. Just really super straightforward in order. Now, you have to have a lot of self-confidence when you're working this way, especially with marker because you cannot erase. But you have to have a little bit of confidence and kind of just go for it no matter what medium you're working in. But what you can always remember is 2 things. Number 1, there is always an ugly phase, and that is what phase that she is in right now. If I stopped and took a break and I came back and looked at her, I would probably start crying because it's like, what is happening? She looks like a puzzle that got put together wrong and everything is crazy, and how is all this skin color is going to blend? And so you have to, the ugliest phase is guaranteed, and it's for all mediums, for all projects. So you have to just know it, and when you see it, be like, oh, what up, ugly phase? I knew you were going to be here. Like, what took you so long? I've been waiting all day for this ugly phase, because as soon as it comes, you know you are exactly 50% of the way through from your projects. You know what that means? It means you are only halfway there. And the only way to get through 100% is to keep going. You can't stop when you get to the ugly phase. You'll never finish. And your ugly phase, by the way, will always win if you stop. So it's super important that you remind yourself when you're at the ugliest part of your project, you can be like, oh, okay. All right, so enough about the ugly phase. Hopefully you've absorbed what I'm preaching at you. But now I want to turn our attention back to the actual drawing. You probably noticed while I was talking about the ugly phase, all the different colors that I've been putting in and around the eyes. There's very, very, very few instances where there's actual white in a portrait, whether whimsical or realistic. So I want you to make sure you get your grays out, no matter what medium you're working in, and really make sure that if there's teeth, they are actually grayed out and they're never stark white. And if you have the whites around the eyes, I want you to put some grays in there and some shadows to make sure we're knocking back that white, because that's not something that you actually, in reality, is how we're perceiving the whites of the eyes. It's super interesting. And once you start noticing that, you'll see that I'm right, and it's super fascinating. Like, you can see what's truly white, which is usually just like the eye twinkle in the eye is usually the only part of a portrait, whether that's realism or whimsical, that is actually true white. And the rest is all sort of shades of skin tone, and that could run the spectrum from beige all the way to super dark brown and different various shades of gray. So I want you to make sure that you're reserving the pure white of your project to just that very, very, very special sparkle that you see in your woman's eyes. And I think it makes it that much more powerful when we focus in on that. So I'm taking my just various multi-liners to do the outlines. And as you notice in this project this week, I'm actually doing the outlines for her eyes, nose, mouth, and face after I fully render her in. I'm not done. I'm going to add some color pencils in a minute. But you always have the choice. You don't have to outline first. And I know a lot of people get discouraged because a lot of times outlining first and then coloring in, there's some bleed. And this will prevent that from happening. So one of my favorite ways of doing hair is to leave a highlighted section. And it's really simple. All you need to do is actually make sure that the roots are very dark and that you just leave a swath of highlighted region in the middle, which just means not applying color there. I'm using my favorite Pentel Pocket brush pen to create the beautiful eyelashes on this woman. I pretty much use this same brush pen for almost all of my girls, as long as their eyelashes are black, and most of the time, thanks to mascara, no matter what ethnicity you're drawing, their eyelashes are black. So it's a really, really great. It takes a little practice getting used to. I have a whole video just dedicated to this technique, which I will share with you in the description box. I did it on my mixed media channel just a couple weeks ago. But it really is my secret weapon in creating really nice, luscious lashes. And again, I normally would switch directions, but I'm really actually paying attention to my reference photo and looking at the direction of her eyelashes and just doing my best to do the same. I'm also using it to create some individual eyebrow lashes. Now, I don't see that on the actual photograph, but again, beauty of whimsical faces, you get to kind of do your own thing. And if there's something that you feel like doing, you absolutely can go ahead and do that. And when I zoom out, you can really see the areas of gray that I've used for additional shading in her, the whites of her eyes. Her lips have that now. The additional darker shading around the left side of her nose and the left side of her face. I don't like to use a lot of gray when shading, but I like to use it as sort of like a final way to pull together just the deepest, darkest spaces. Adding the little twinkle in the eye with my paint pen gives the eyes packs the biggest punch possible. I have never even done this very simple highlighting technique. I always do a dot. And having this little line on either side of the pupil that's large and black was something I've never tried before, and I'm absolutely obsessed. These kind of opportunities and creative freedoms and little nuances that you pick up from doing different types of art and different times of faces is exactly the fun of doing series like these. I learned so much by just doing different things, trying different things, using different resources, changing up my mediums. This has been awesome. Super sorry about my hair. Sometimes, again, it's unavoidable. I'm using my circle template to help me draw that nose ring so that it's perfect. And I'm actually using just a pencil because the nose ring on my reference is metal and it was kind of shiny. And so I thought, well, graphite might actually do the trick for that. And then I'm using a white pencil to go back, and I'm really trying to pay close attention to not only the dark areas, but also the highlighted areas. And if there's any areas that need to be lighter, I'm actually going to work them in with my combination of color pencils. And then if I want an even bigger punch to be packed punch, yes, I use a gel pen or a paint pen. And of course, that always gives a startling bright weight, but I do love me a highlight that really does pack a punch. I'm not scared to have really deep dark shadows and really bright highlights, and I hope that you are not either. That's where the drama comes. That's where the dimension comes. And I just feel like you can never kind of overdo it. You can, but like I'd rather overdo it than underdo it. So here I'm starting out. It's always easier to start with a colored pencil to kind of make sure like, is this the right area? Is this going to look the same? And then if you want to take it one step further, that's when you reach for your paint pen or your gel pen. The gel pens, like this one, I'm actually off to the side trying to get it to work, is like not working, which is like super frustrating. So I'm switching to my good old favorites, the Posca pen, which never let me down. This has a little mini nib, and I'm just adding a little highlight onto the nose ring just to try to do my best to make it look like what I see in the photograph. Also adds some dimension. It might not look like metal, but at least it's not like, what's that dark weird circle under her nose? Like, oh, there's something shimmering there. So again, I'm not making up where these reflections are. That's what I'm using the information from my reference to inform me. And we can do the same thing with the dot that's on her forehead. There's a highlighted side and then there's a shading side. And I'm trying my best to interpret kind of what I see. And I'm using my paint pens to add the highlighting and then the little pencil marks to do the shading for me. And as you may have noticed, I'm actually back in real time because these little details are so super important that I want to make sure you're not missing anything at this stage, because no matter what medium you're working in, you could be done the whole thing in color pencil or the whole thing in watercolors. But these little highlights and these little final details can actually be done in the same way in any medium that you're starting out with, which is a super big, like, hint, hint, hey, if you need to pack a punch, no matter what you're working in, grab a paint pen. You can put it on top of anything. That's what's so magical about it, is it's literally acrylic paint. So it sits on top of any of the mediums that you're working with, except for oil-based anything. So just stay away from oil-based things and you're fine. You can always layer on top with acrylic. Works awesome. I love, love, love the undersided highlights that are on the photograph. Again, this is why I'm slowing this down for you so you can see what I just did. On the left-hand side, under her lashes are highlighted. Again, that's not me being creative. That's me simply reading my reference. So just so you know, yeah, the reference photos are available. If you just go to Awesome Art School, you can grab them from my YouTube library collection. You can grab all 12 references plus all my cheat sheets. It's only $5. Or you don't even need the reference. You can just simply follow along the tutorial that you're watching with me, and I will hold your hand and lead you through this entire project step by step, as you can clearly see. So last final details, you can kind of go all day long, but you can use color pencils over a lot of mediums as well. Color pencils are awesome over watercolors. They're awesome over watercolor markers. They're great over Copic markers, which is what I'm using. They're awesome over acrylics. So they're a great way, they're a great complement on top of a many number of mediums, because they're soft and you can kind of approach them and build them up slowly, layers upon layers. And so I like to use them to ease the transitions in some of the rougher areas of my face where the transitions with the markers are like too abrupt or their line is too great. Sometimes I love that, but sometimes I don't love it and it's too much. And if I want to knock back that transition, no problem. I just take my color pencil and I usually, as you can see, scribble them in the opposite direction of where the line is. So if my line is vertical that I'm seeing, then I'm going to be coloring with my pencils horizontally. So it literally is going to go against the direction of the line that is bothering me. I can't get over how beautiful this woman is. And it's because of all those highlights and the drama in her shading. So yes, so take advantage of the slowed down version to really pay attention to the details and what's the directionality of the brush strokes. Where on the lips are we going? And what were all those nuances added when I added the gray on top of the pink? All these little teeny tiny details can really help take your work to the next level, regardless of what mediums you're working in. So I really encourage you to, if you want to enter and have your picture, your version featured in my book, I would love to have you. I'm going to have about 4 images per girl. So that's, let's see, there's going to be 12 girls at least. I'll have 12 lessons anyways at YouTube's on this drawing YouTube channel. And so there's plenty of opportunities. 12 times 4 is 48 different people can be featured. And I'm looking for creativity. So I'm looking for people who are following the drawing lesson, but who are, using their creativity. Maybe you're changing up the colors. Maybe you're doing different mediums. But if you're learning a lot and having a blast and you're happy with your end result, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm just looking for full participation and a whole lot of fun. I would love to feature you. Again, you can find the details by just going to my website, KarenCampbellArtist.com, and click on Get Published, and all of the requirements, the submission requirements will be there for you. Stay tuned for next week because I will be having another lesson. I'm doing a red-haired fiery Scot lady in honor of one of my students who gave me the reference, as well as my own passionate love affair that I'm having with the country of Scotland. And if you know me at all, you know that what I'm saying is so true. So click the button here to watch last week's if you need to catch up. And then the whole playlist will be here too, whereas you can see all 12 lessons as they are brought out over time. I will see you here next Monday. Have an awesome week.